We finished the discussion on regular languages, and today we are going to start discussion about context-free languages. That is the next powerful language in the Chomsky hierarchy. And today we are going to introduce the grammar representation for the next category of languages, which is the class of context-free languages. So we are going to see what is a context-free grammar and how a context-free grammar can be used to represent a language and what kind of a language is represented by a context-free grammar. And before we start discussing about context-free grammars, let us see why one should study about context-free grammars. There are various applications. They are widely used in programming languages. For example, they are used to define the syntax of programming languages, like the syntax of expressions, and they are used in the compilation process, mostly in parsing. And they characterize the languages accepted by the next category of automata that we will be discussing after context-free grammars, and namely push-down automata, more powerful than deterministic finite state automata. And push-down automata can model programs with procedure calls, and they are also used in modeling various other infinite state systems. And finally, CFGs, the use of context-free grammars, enable us to get easier proofs for push-down languages, that is, languages represented by the next category of automata. And this is the motivation for learning about context-free grammars. Now, we can try to see what is a context-free grammar through example grammars. For example, here, a grammar G is given with the following set of two productions. So 1 colon and 2 colon in blue color just give the number of a number to the productions. So here there are two productions, and I hope you remember the basics about grammar from the regular grammars that we learned. And so given this grammar, how we can make use of this grammar is we can derive sentences or strings in the language represented by the grammar, and we need to recall how you can derive strings in the language. So basically, derivation means begin with the start simple S. So always in a grammar there must be the simple S, which is the start simple where you can begin your derivation process. So begin with S and keep rewriting the sentential form, which is nothing but the current string that you are having. So in your current string, you replace a non-terminal. Non-terminal means basically, in our examples, those represented by capital letters. So in the current string, what you do, you find a non-terminal like capital S and replace that non-terminal by using the RHS of a production in the grammar. For example, if you are having the simple capital S in your string, you can replace that by applying either production number 1 or 2. If you are applying 1, S will be getting replaced with the RHS, that is small a capital S small b. Similarly here, capital S will be replaced with epsilon, and that is what derivation is. So you begin with the start simple and keep on rewriting the current string by using this until you get into a string where there is no non-terminal or capital letters. Examples will make it more clear. So we can see some example derivations in this grammar. So we have to begin with the start simple. So we are always capital S will be the start simple in our grammars. So you are starting with capital S, and for S there are two productions. And suppose we apply production number 2, what will happen? Capital S will be replaced with epsilon. So now you are getting a string where no non-terminals are there. In this example grammar, the only one non-terminal is capital S, which is not there. So you finish deriving a string in the language of the grammar or a sentence in the grammar, from the grammar. So you can say that you derive the sentence epsilon from the start simple using one step in the derivation, only one step. Another example, begin with the start simple. Suppose this time I apply production number 1, then I will replace capital S with the RHS of production number 1. That's what I did. And now I can do the rewriting because there is a non-terminal. Capital S is appearing here as well. So this time suppose I am going to apply production number 2. What will happen? This capital S will be replaced with epsilon. That's what's happening. So I derived a terminal string, or which is what is called a sentence. I don't have anything to do now because I don't have a capital letter variable or a non-terminal. So here you can see that you derived the sentence AB from the start simple using two steps. Now that this is not the production number, this is how many steps. Okay, another example, start with yes, I am applying production number 1, so I will get exactly this. And now again suppose you apply production number 1. This capital S will be replaced by the RHS of the production number 1. So what I am getting is this. And now suppose you apply production number 2. This S will go away because epsilon will take it out. So now you can say that you derived AABB or A square B square from the start simple using 3 steps. 1, 2, 3 steps. And so what language is represented by this grammar? Can you now generalize using this? You can see that the language is exactly this. The language of this grammar is the set of all a to the power n, b to the power n, where n is greater than or equal to 0. And we know this language as a non-regular language. And now we are getting a formal representation for this language, and which is a grammar. And whether this language is exactly this, that we will discuss in the next class. How to prove the correctness of a grammar design, that we will be discussing in the next class. So now you take it from me, this is the language. Let us move on to the next example. And here you can actually write this grammar as this. There are two productions. These two productions are for the same non-terminal capital S. In that case, you can combine this into a single sentence like this. Capital S can be replaced by either this or this. So these two rules for the same simple can be combined like this using the pipe. This is another representation which is also very common. But we will be using this because that will make the discussion more clear when we want to discuss the derivations. So move on to the next example. Another grammar with 5 productions is given to you. Look at the derivations. Begin with the start simple. Now suppose I apply production number 5, so I derive epsilon. So you can say you derive epsilon from the start simple using one step. Second example, beginning with the start simple. Now suppose you apply production number 3. So what will happen? This capital S will be replaced with small a. So you are deriving a terminal string. You can say in one step you derived small a. Next example, again starting with capital S. This time I am going to apply production number 4. So in one step I can derive B. You will say in one step you derive small b from capital S. Fourth example, this time I am going to apply production number 1. So RHS of production number 1 will replace this S. That's exactly what happened. And now suppose you apply production number 5, this S will be replaced with the epsilon. So you are deriving A square or AA. That is what is derived in 2 steps. Next example, from capital S, this time I am going to apply production number 2. So this you will replace S with BSB. And if you apply production number 5, you will get BB. So you are deriving BB in 2 steps. Next example, from capital S, suppose I apply production number 1, I will get ASA, same as this. And now I am applying production number 4. What is happening? This capital S will be replaced with small b. So it is ABA. So you are deriving ABA in 2 steps. There is a typo, sorry for that. This is two steps. So next example, I am applying production number 2. So I am getting this. Then production number 1. So this is production number 1. ASA is going to replace capital S. That's exactly what has happened. And now if I apply production number 4, which is a B. So what I am getting is BABAB. So I can say that in 3 steps I derived BABAB. And one more. Okay, now can you generalize what language is represented by G by just looking at all these strings derived? It's a little more complicated grammar to generalize and say what the language is. But if you carefully look at all the strings, you can generalize. What you can see is that in every case, the reverse of the string is same as this. In this case, epsilon, reverse of A is A, reverse of B is B, AA, reverse is A, BB. For all the cases, you can see that the string is same as its reverse. So in fact, this is the palindrome language, set of all palindromes. And mathematically, you can write it as the set of all W said that W is same as reverse of W, or it is the set of all palindrome words. So the set of all palindrome words is represented by this context-free grammar. And you can prove that this again is non-regular language, but we have a context-free grammar. Moving on to the third example. Suppose you are given this grammar with 4 productions. And try to find the language. How the grammar is designed is a different question that you can see later. And try deriving sentences and generalize and see what language is represented. Start with the start simple, and applying production number 4, you can derive epsilon. So in one step you derived epsilon. Then beginning with the start simple, maybe you can first apply production number 1. So what are you getting? You are getting this, and now if you apply production number 4, you are getting AB. So you can say in 2 steps you derived AB. Third example, derivation, and here starting from the start simple, apply production number 2. And if you apply production number 4 here, you will get BA. So in 2 steps, BA is derived. Fourth example, beginning from the start state, you apply production number 1. So you're getting ASB. And suppose now you apply production number 2, what you will get? This capital S will be replaced by BSE. And now if you apply production number 4, this S will go out, you will get AB. So you say you derived AB in 3 steps. Now, If you begin with S, suppose you apply production number 3. What is production number 3? SS. And this is the first time we are getting a string where there are two occurrences of capital S, or two non-terminals are there. In this case, both are same, but two are there. So you can either replace the first capital S or you can replace the second capital S. I am going to replace the first capital S with the first production. So first production is applied for the first capital S, then first capital S will be replaced with ASB. And why first? That you can decide. I just pick the first one, that's it. So that's it. And now what I am doing is, here again I have two occurrences of S. I am going to apply production number 4 for the first S. So this S will go away because epsilon. Yeah, I am getting ABS. And now suppose I apply production number 2 on this single S. I will get BSA. And production number 4 will now allow me to derive ABBA. You can say that you derived ABBA in how many steps? This is a typo, sorry for that. How many steps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. This should be 5. Sorry for the typo. So in 5 steps, I derive ABBA. Now, can you generalize and say what language is represented? Look at all these things. And can you see some properties? There are some pattern that you can see. And if you guess something, look at the productions and refine your thinking and say what you can conclude. Here, in fact, you can conclude that the language is the set of all strings with equal number of A's and B's. Observe it in all these cases. And here in the productions, you see that if there is a, then there is a matching B also. If there is a B, there is a matching A. And this is actually concatenation of two strings of that kind. And here no A's and B's. And this is in fact the language. And in the next class, we are going to use this as an example to learn how one can prove the correctness of a grammar design. That is the soundness and completeness. So for the time being, take it as granted, and at least for these cases it is correct. And this is, believe me, and this is the grammar for equal number of A's and B's, which is proved to be a non-regular language. And with these 3 examples, I think now is the time for us to formally define context-free grammar. So take the first example grammar with these 2 productions and recollect all the components in it and thus define what a context-free grammar is. A context-free grammar G is a quadruple VTSP, same as in the case of regular grammar. Here the only difference is in the way you define the productions, that's it. So V is the finite set of non-terminal simples or variables. Here only one, that is capital S. And capital T is the set of terminal simples, here A and B. It's actually the alphabet set of the language represented. And now the third one is capital S, which is a non-terminal, which is an element of V, not to be the start symbol of the grammar where you can begin your derivation. So always you assume that it is capital S. And finally, capital P, the finite set of production rules. Finite set of productions of the form alpha goes to beta, where alpha is an element of V. That means the LHS of a production must be a non-terminal symbol, same as that of regular grammar. And the RHS of a production can be any string of terminals and non-terminals. That's it. If you recall, in the case of a regular grammar that was restricted, the production must be either right linear or left linear. All the productions must be right linear or all the productions must be left linear. Right linear means only one non-terminal is permitted in the RHS, and that must be the rightmost simple or the leftmost simple for all productions. So in that way we had restricted a regular grammar, but here we are making it more flexible. So the RHS can be an arbitrary string of non-terminals and terminals, any string of non-terminals and terminals. So that is the definition of a context-free grammar. And with this, now we are proceeding to define the language represented by a context-free grammar. For that we need a notation. The notation, the start symbol of the grammar G derives W in 0 or more steps is what this representation is telling you. Represents the fact that we can derive the string W from the start symbol of the grammar G in 0 or more steps. If you recall, we set the number of productions here to say that something is derived. And start means 0 or more steps, and that is the only thing that we have not seen. So this means that from the start symbol of the grammar G, you can derive the terminal string W, which is derived using 0 or more steps in the derivation, that is start. There may be a valid question why it is 0 or more. Why don't it is 1 or more? That we can discuss later. Now you can use this notation to define the language represented by a context-free grammar. The language represented by a context-free grammar G, represented as L of G, is defined as follows. The language of G is equal to the set of all terminal strings W such that W can be derived from the start symbol of G using 0 or more steps in the derivation. So semantically it is the set of all strings derivable from the start symbol of the grammar. Now if you can have a context-free grammar generating a language A, then the language A is called a context-free language. That is, a language A is said to be a context-free language if there exists a context-free grammar G such that A is the language of the grammar G. For example, A to the power n, B to the power n is a context-free language by this definition because there exists a context-free grammar generating the language. Another example is the set of all palindrome words is a context-free language because we have a context-free grammar. And the third example that we discussed is the set of all strings with equal number of A's and B's is again a context-free language because we have a context-free grammar generating it. And with this I am moving on to the last slide where I am giving you some practice questions as assignments to understand exactly what we discussed today. And prove that the following languages are context-free. So what you have to do is you try to find context-free grammars for these languages. If you are getting, then you can conclude that the language is context-free. This is a set of strings A is followed by B such that number of A is strictly more than number of B's. It's a non-regular language. And here it is A to the power M, B to the power N, C to the power M plus N. And here it is W, C, W reverse. What we have seen is set of all W such that W is same as W reverse. But here what we need is W, C, W reverse. That is a palindrome word, but in the middle you are putting a simple C, and what can be C? C is either A or B. So you can see that this is exactly the set of all odd length palindrome over the set AB. And finally, this example, which is the set of all balanced parentheses. Left and right parentheses are the symbols in the alphabet set, and this language is the set of all strings with balanced parentheses. What is balanced? And this is how mathematically you define it. The number of left parentheses is equal to number of right parentheses. That is one requirement. That is not enough. And for all prefix, if w can be written as x concatenated with y, that means x is an arbitrary prefix of w. You have to prove that the number of left parentheses in x is less than or equal to number of right parentheses. So this is how you can mathematically define the language of balanced parentheses. So try to find context-free grammars for these languages, and if you're getting, you can conclude that these languages are context-free. So today, we have seen a grammar for representing a class of languages which is more powerful than regular languages, because for all the 3 example languages that we discussed today, and for all the exercise questions, the languages are non-regular, but we have context-free grammar. And a grammar is said to be context-free if the productions are such that the LHS is a variable or a non-terminal, and the RHS can be any string of terminals and non-terminals. And a language is said to be context-free if there exists a context-free grammar generating the language. So in the next class, we are going to discuss how can one prove the correctness of a grammar design. That is the soundness and completeness. We want to prove that if something is derived, then the string must be in the required language. That is the soundness. Completeness, we have to prove that if some strings are in the language, if x is a string in the required language, then we must be able to derive x from the start symbol of the grammar. So this is what we are going to discuss in the next class. So please try to write grammars for all the example languages given as exercise, and try to understand what we did today. Thank you.